Hey everyone, this is Exploring Fiction, and welcome back to another video. Well, it's true I've never had a chance to dive into the Western genre with much intent. I've always known about the Dollars trilogy, and now I've finally gotten a chance to watch all three films. So without further ado, let's get right into my thoughts. And before we do that, just to let you know, there will be spoilers ahead for each of the films in the Dollars trilogy, which includes A Fistful of Dollars, For a Few Dollars More, and The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. So if you have not seen any of those films and you want to, I would click away because I will be going into some spoilers. Now to start off, I want to go over a few things that I enjoyed about all three films before talking about each one specifically. So I want to just touch on some things that I enjoyed equally about the three movies together before I go into each one. Firstly, the music. Ennio Morricone basically defined what we know as Old West music with his scores in these three films. And the standouts were the themes from each of these three movies and the ecstasy of gold from The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. The other great thing that I admired about all three films equally was Clint Eastwood's Man with No Name. He was a quiet, brooding man, great with a revolver. He was an anti-hero that I love following through these movies, and he was a great definition of a strong male character that didn't come off as obnoxious. And so I loved following his character through these movies. Now, on to talking about each movie in turn. And first, A Fistful of Dollars. Now, before I get a bunch of comments, yes, I know this movie was basically a Western remake of Akira Kurosawa's film Yojimbo, which I have not seen, by the way. But that doesn't really matter to me when I'm talking about this movie. First of all, I thought this film had the most condensed and action-packed plot of the three. The idea of the Man with No Name coming to town and playing both of the powerful families, the Rojos and the Baxters, just to make more money for himself, kept the entire film intense. Especially near the end, when he knocked out Chico and captured Marisol and brought her to the Baxter's place. That whole little sequence was pretty intense. Ramon Rojo was a great villain, played wonderfully by Gian Maria Volante, excuse me if I'm butchering that name, and the characters of Silvanito and Piropero were other standouts, those being the bar owner and the Undertaker, respectively. Next up is For a Few Dollars More. Personally, I think this was the most forgettable of the three, but it was still great. Clint Eastwood was still great as the Man with No Name, and Lee Van Cleef as the Civil War veteran bounty hunter killer. Mortimer was a great part of the cast as well. Gian Maria Volante served again as the main villain, this time the outlaw El Indio. And while I liked Volante better as Ramon Rojo, El Indio was a better villain to hate. The scene where he orders the death of the woman and child of the man he's interrogating is gut-wrenching, even though it was off-screen. You could really feel the emotions and the weight of that scene. Another thing I enjoyed about For a Few Dollars More was the idea of two protagonists, both being bounty killers, forced to work together, and the whole mysterious plot thread of the woman El Indio loved, who didn't love him back, being Mortimer's sister was chilling. Especially realizing the stopwatch that each of these characters carried, El Indio and Mortimer respectively, was of her. That whole idea brought the film together for me, and Morricone blending the chime of the watch into the score was beautiful. And of course, our Man with No Name, this time called Manco, ending up with the money because Mortimer got his revenge, was a fitting way to end the movie. And of course, what I'm sure you're all waiting for, my thoughts on The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. I almost think the reason the previous film was more forgettable was because of how much I loved this film, and how much it's been on my mind since watching it. First of all, it has the best music of the series. Also, while the film felt like 3 hours long, I don't mean that in a bad way. Some films, such as the Lord of the Rings trilogy, are 3-hour films, but don't feel like it at all. This movie definitely did feel like 3 hours, but it did so with a purpose, and I definitely wasn't bored. We were going on a journey with the titular characters, and it was all the better for it. Clint Eastwood's Blondie, or The Good, was my favorite character, obviously, and Lee Van Cleef's Angel Eyes, or The Bad, felt like a dark and serious threat as the antagonist. But the show stealer was Eli Wallach's Tuco, or The Ugly. He was despicable and pitiful all at once, and his changing relationship with Blondie made for an interesting dynamic. While the first two films in the trilogy felt like standard spaghetti westerns, this movie felt like so much more, in part due to its reflection on the brutality and reality of the American Civil War from a foreign perspective. We got to see our characters be a part of both sides, and they were up close and personal to witness atrocities of war. That made this film feel more meaningful. While some of this film was slower, it was all worth it for the ending. The scene of Tuco running through the graveyard while the ecstasy of gold played in the background, and the final standoff between our three main characters while trumpets blared, made for a tense, exciting, and breathtaking finish. And those two scenes were some of the best pieces of filmmaking I've ever seen. I also love the callback of the way Blondie makes Tuco earn his share of the gold in the end. And one more side note. Because of the scene where Blondie exchanged his coat with a dying Confederate soldier in exchange for his signature poncho, I do like to think of these films as a trilogy in the same continuity, going in backward order. Well, that's up for interpretation. I find that to make them more enjoyable overall. And really, like I said, The Good and the Bad and the Ugly was definitely my favorite. I mean, yes, it feels like a 3-hour movie. Like, it feels like a long movie. And really, if you're watching this movie with someone with not a lot of patience, they might get bored. But if you're really invested into seeing this movie through, it is totally worth it. The last 25 minutes alone makes the entire movie worth it. And just getting to know these characters and seeing the finale with them makes it one of the best movies I've ever seen. So while all three films were great, The Good, The Bad, and The Ugly was assuredly one of the best movies I've ever seen. So, you could say I had a great time watching the Dollars trilogy for the first time. So guys, have you seen the Dollars trilogy before? And if you have, let me know what you think below in the comments. Let's have a conversation about these movies, because they really are some of the greatest pieces of cinema ever, in my opinion. Leave a like if you enjoyed this video, subscribe if you're new here, I would love to have you, and like always, I will see you next time.